Welcome to the California Junction Trail at California Woods Nature Preserve, one of Cincinnati's parks. My name's Jonathan Duerbeck, and we just came up a very steep, windy trail all the way up from the Lick Run Creek Valley up to this high place where the trail suddenly becomes very straight and very flat, as though it was engineered like a highway. And that's because this isn't just a hiking trail, this used to be a railroad. It started in 1873. It was called the Cincinnati, Georgetown, and Portsmouth Railroad, or as some called it, Come Gentlemen and Push. The reason they needed a railroad was getting around back then was hard. The roads were mud, dirt, slush, flooded, washed out. People couldn't carry anything very heavy down the road because they were in rickety wagons with wooden wheels. To get to Cincinnati took a long time. Farmers wanted to be able to take their produce into town and sell it. People in town wanted to get out in the country, but they didn't have a reliable way to do that, so they built this railroad. Behind me, there is a tall dirt bluff where people dug soil out of the side of this hill to make space for this train track. All of that dirt was taken out to where this hill used to be, going all across and gradually sloping down over my head. That's how much hill was removed, and then dumped into valleys and on top of bridges to make the embankments that let the train go flat even across a valley and stay low instead of having to climb up through a hill. When this railroad was built, they did not own any of the land. And this was not a park either. People wanted the railroad here because they thought they'd be able to make more money. They'd be able to travel, their land would be worth more money. So people just donated the land. They donated a lot of the wood and timber along the place. They donated rights to dig out the dirt. And the reason is, people that lived in Mount Washington wanted the railroad. They were the ones who started it, and they wanted it to go through their land. So they took this crazy curvy route to follow the hills to try to get up to Mount Washington instead of taking a much easier way. If you look close behind me, you can see some clues that tell us there used to be a railroad station here. There are two trees that don't quite fit. They're both dead, and they're both silver maples. One right behind me on this side, one right behind me on that side. Both of them have lost their tops. These were shade trees for the station that was here. The station building was put here right after they put the junction in because every train that came through here had to stop here. They only had one track and they didn't want to have collisions or problems, so they had to communicate with every train and have them check right here that everything's okay. And again, they'd either route them over to the waterworks in Coney Island or up to Mount Washington and beyond. The person that lived here had a house where he could have a family and a garden, an orchard, and that was a full-time job as a station agent here. In the summer, in 1907, there was a summer trolley car on this electrified railroad at that point, coming back to Cincinnati from Coney Island, and it went off the tracks. Started tumbling down this embankment, luckily got wedged into the trees, wasn't moving very fast because it had just taken off from California Junction. There were 16 people, they were all taken to a doctor, they were all okay. It's definitely not the worst accident that happened on this railroad, but it's one that we know happened right here. These rails are all we have left of the rails on the railroad. They were used as rebar inside of concrete for this drainage ditch here. The rest of the rails were torn up and used for the war effort for World War II. So here is where we have our last stop on this tour. Our railroad leaves our trail and goes out of California Woods to Mount Washington and beyond.